Fire's coming from the garden, but I don't wanna see. It's times like these I'm fucking starving for some rest and dopamine. And now the headaches are starting, cause I'm trying to sleep. I'm sick of stressing regardless of what's happened.
Why does anybody ask if I'm still up? Half empty is the glass, need to fill up. What's running toward the past gonna give us? They said I'd look back and laugh, but I guess last for the winners. I've been sad that I lived up to everything I thought that I had gotten rid of. Now the flowers in the back are being lit up, and all I can do is laugh at the fact that the flames are never bigger.
I feel the temperatures rising as the smoke takes its turn. The fire's already climbing, let's watch the rose bushes burn. Desire fueled by the lightning, but ashes all we deserve. I'm planting seeds though despite this they like to think I still hurt. Now ask me, what did I learn? When I watched everything burn. When I watched everything burn. When I watched everything burn. When I watched everything burn.
Lead me to the cosmos, then feed me to the monster. It's funny, only God knows what's real among the nonsense. Hit me with an encore, ready to be honest, cause I don't really know anymore. Shattered glass can look like diamonds. Fuck it, oh, what have you done? Leave me feeling hollow, fill me up with toxins. I trust you with my eyes closed, ignoring my own conscience. Take me to the end goal, right before I jump ship, cause I don't really care anymore. Shattered glass in place of diamond. There's gotta be love in the fallacy. It's gotta be us in these fantasies. There's gonna be blood if I have to bleed, cause it's fucking me up. Cause it's fucking me up. There's gotta be love in the fallacy. It's gotta be us in these fantasies. There's gonna be blood if I have to bleed, cause it's fucking me up. Cause it's fucking me up. Wish I woke up in the morning, draped in silk Louis Vuitton, worthlessly gilded by the sun.
I be someone? I wish I drove a new song, or drink champagne from northern France, fall asleep with the Rolex on, then I'd be someone. I wish I woke up in Milan. I wish I woke up in Milan. Draped in silk Louis Vuitton. Draped in silk Louis Vuitton. Worthlessly gilded by the sun. Then I'd be someone. I wish I drove a new song. Wish I drove a new song. Or drank champagne from northern France. Drink champagne from northern France. Fall asleep with the Rolex on. Then I'd be someone. Then I'd be someone. Then I'd be someone. Wish I woke up in Milan. Wish I woke up in Milan. Draped in silk Louis Vuitton. Draped in silk Louis Vuitton. Worthlessly gilded by the sun. Then I'd be someone. There's something we should talk about. The elephant in the room. Don't hit me with the run around. Just tell me the truth. I really need to know right now what's happened to you. The road that you've been going down is where you stand alone. You said lately I haven't felt myself changing. I haven't felt the bar raising. My heart is racing, but I cannot tell what the fuck it's chasing. Am I angry? You think I'm mad that I'm hazy? You think I can't ride these waves yet? What a shame, yeah. I'm still the same sad fuck, hoarding all this pain. Well then hate me. Do you think everyone hates me? I think it's so fucking crazy that the whole world laughs at the daily mates. Always saving face, make me famous. Let them know what my name is. Scratch that, I'm feeling anxious. I'm gonna stay in. I don't know what it is I want, but I've been too damn complacent. Be patient. Yeah, be patient. Gotta be patient.
Hello, everybody. I'm surprised every time when I hear Will Rowe and how poppy and singy and great the songs are. Go show him some love, especially when you consider what crap gets played on the radio, right? He has he streams on Twitch as well, plays games, things like that, and he has all his songs on Spotify. Highly recommend. Okay, so last time we did some particles, physics and tile maps, and now we're gonna continue with lighting. I think is next. Yeah, lighting and animation. So I'm gonna cover that today, because then I can start working on another prototype of mine that I had in mind. Let me just see if everything works. So Godot is here. And let's see if the debug or player screen works. Yes, it does. Okay. Sound mix seems fine. I think we can do this.
I don't want to keep you here for too long. You can play around with all of this to a great extent. And if you want your game to look good, then obviously you have to spend a lot of time with all of this. In my case though, this is a tutorial, so let's say for this part we are basically done. The next major aspect that I want to work on is going to be light, which is super important to make games look good. And in Godot, there isn't that much to it. It's quite easy to work with light. Ultimately, there are two nodes that you can use. Number one is called a point light. And this is a single point of light that you have somewhere in your level. So think of a flashlight or...
So that was the grid-based thing you showed in Discord, right? Yeah, that's you. Yeah, it seems cool. Excited to see where it goes.
Or any kind of lamp. Besides that, we have a directional light. And this is a light from a direction that usually is really far away. The best example for that would be a sun. Although if you want to have some general lighting for your scene to create a certain kind of atmosphere, you would also use a directional light. That being said though, most of the time you would combine a point light and a directional light all over your scene. Using lights is a really common thing. You are doing that basically everywhere. Now, besides those two nodes, we have one more concept, and that is called a light occluder, which is basically a shape that a light can collide with. So far, we have used collision bodies with a collision shape. And a light...
Oh man, now that I think about it, there's so many... how do I call it? Like collision body types. There's one for physics, right? For collisions. Then there's one for areas and signals, or like area 2D. And now there's an extra one for light. Can't you just say that? Yeah, that's a lot to think about when you're making objects and scenes.
Light occluder does the same thing just for light. And that is all we need to get started. So let's have a look at all of this in practice. Back in Godot, I want to create a whole new light. So with a new scene selected, I want to create another node, and the root node is going to be a static body 2D. Let's call this one a simple light. We are going to need a sprite 2D, and the sprite 2D we find under graphics. There we have objects, and under objects we have light.png. This I want to drag into the texture, and there we get a basic light. This one is also going to need a collision shape. So with simple light selected once again, I want to give it a collision shape 2D. And I think for this one, a capsule shape is probably best. Although I do want to transform it and give it a rotation of 90 degrees. And now we can drag it out to cover the area that we need. That is looking roughly okay. Now I want to move the collision shape behind the sprite 2D so we can see what's going on. And now we have a basic static object. Let's save it right away, under Scenes, Objects, and there we have Simple Light. Now this light I want to use inside of the house right away. So in there, let me attach a new scene, which is going to be this simple light. And this simple light I want to move somewhere, let's put it here on the right side. So if I zoom in, I can place it a bit better. And if we use transform, we can give this a -90 rotation, although the proper rotation would be positive 90 degrees, because this area is where the light is coming from. And then we can move it a bit further to the right. And then we have some kind of light. So this is certainly a start. But, well, we don't actually have any kind of light. All we have is a lamp that is switched off. For that, back in the simple light, we have to work with light nodes. And for that, with the simple light selected, I want to attach another node. If I simply type light, we can see we have a directional light, a point light, and a light occluder. Since we want to have a local light, which means a light from one point, we want to have a point light. So this I want to create. And this changes nothing, again. And we are getting a warning.
What's with the copy-paste, man?
Godot is complaining that we are missing a texture. And the texture we are placing in there. And to get a texture, I want to minimize the objects, and we have a folder called lights. In there we have textures, and in there we have circle.png. This I want to drag in there. I don't want to drag it on the editor. I want to drag it into the texture. That is looking better. And you can already tell if I toggle the visibility of the point light, we have some kind of light. And now if I save the entire scene and go back to the house, you can see we have a brighter color around this area. And this is the light. I can make this even more noticeable. So on the right in the inspector, we have a couple of attributes that we can work with. The texture scale, the color, and the energy are the attributes you want to care most about. Color is the easiest one to see. In there, by default, we have white, but we can change this to any color we want. Let's say in my case, I want to have a bluish color. That should still be quite bright because we have a light, but something like this should be much better. And now I save the scene, go back to the house, and now we have a bluish light around this area. Still not particularly visible because the energy for this light is quite low. If I make this brighter, you can already see we have a much more noticeable light. So now if I go back to the house, there we have a very strong light. And if you want to change the scale of the light or how far this light is reaching, you would work with the texture scale. If I increase that one to a really large number and return to the house, now we can see the light is illuminating basically all of the house. Although this is way too much, let's put this at a 2. That should be much better. And yeah, I think this is reasonably okay. On top of that, if I go back to the level, we can see all of that as well. And if I run the game and go to this area, it still is going to take some time. But there we have the light, and the player is also reacting with the light. So this is working quite well. Cool. Now, this is a good start, but it's still fairly limited. And the main issue we have are shadows. Yeah. So right now we are illuminating all of this area. Let me zoom out a bit. We are illuminating all of this, but this is not how a light works. Instead, I just want to have a cone that goes something like this. Or at the very least, I want to have shadows around the back of the light and along the main wall of the tile map. For that, we have to learn about another node. So back inside of the simple light, I want to add another node, and this node is a light occluder 2D. If I create that one, nothing is going to happen. To make something happen inside of the inspector, we have an occluder, and this is just a shape. So we have to give it a polygon, and then on top we have the tools to draw another shape. So let me draw a couple of basic points around this. Doesn't have to be too specific, but once again, if this is your game, make sure that you are spending a fair bit of time on this, because this is what makes the game look good. Cool. And now if I have the shape, you can see some parts do have light and other parts are blacked out. If I save all of this and go back to the level, we can see that now this part is not visible anymore. Now, this still isn't looking great, and to make it look much better, back in Simple Light, we want to enable shadows. If I switch that one on, we get some slightly weird effect inside of Simple Light, but if I look back at the house, this is looking significantly better. Now we get some proper light behavior. The light possibly is a bit strong, but this is something you can fine-tune on your own. Now, for the shadow, you can also customize a couple of bits. Most importantly, you have the color and the filter. Color is fairly straightforward, so if you change this to something really weird, you can create any kind of color for the shadow that you want. Although this is not something you particularly want to do, because the shadow at some point has to disappear. Like you can see in this corner, there the shadow disappears. But for the other areas, like this, getting the shadow back to 0 might take forever. So you want to be really careful, especially for the alpha value of the shadow. Most of the time you want to have a really dark shadow, because shadows in general are black. They are the absence of light, so you don't want to have a bright shadow. That being said, we can give it a slight bluish color to match it with the light. So if I have something like this, this is, well, it's getting a bit better, but you don't want to have a shadow too visible. Besides that, what you can do is work on the filter. And there are 3 different kinds of filters that you can work with. By default, you have none. And this is the fastest or the easiest one to calculate. However, if I go to PCF 13, then if I save all of this and go back to the level, now we have a much fuzzier outline for the shadow. So if I compare this with none and save all of this, we now have a sharp line for the shadow.
Yeah.
And this is basically what the filter does. And the more of a filter you use, the more difficult it is for your computer to process. So you do want to be careful with that. This is the kind of thing that can really tank your performance. I guess for this one, we can go with average and then give it a bit of smoothing and just see what happens. I guess this is an interesting effect, although not exactly what I want. If I add a lot more smoothing, there you can see what this one is doing. It creates a greater distance between these points. So I guess we should have very low amount between them. And if you zoom out, this is basically not noticeable anymore. So with that, let's run the game and let's see how this looks actually when we play it. And I can move in there, and this is looking at least acceptable. But obviously, customize this as much as you want. One slight thing that annoys me is that we have these larger blue rays. And this is because of the color of the shadow. We want this to be a bit darker. So let's reduce the opacity and make all of this generally a bit darker. Now if I save this there, it's much less noticeable. Cool. And with that, we have some very basic light and some very basic shadows. And that is also a really good point to do an exercise. I want you guys to create another wall light. If you look at the graphics folder inside of objects, we have another image called wall-lamp.png. Use that to create another light. This light should also have a couple of occlusion shapes. Finally, make the player cast a shadow. Pause the video now and try to implement all of that.
Okay. I followed the tutorial and I do have the occluder, but for some reason it kind of bleeds through here. Let me see if that's actually visible in the game. Yeah, it is. Is it just because the simple light is a bit too close to it? Or I mean the point light. Yeah, okay. That fixed it. There we go. Okay. Okay, cool. This is way simpler than I thought it would be, and it seems like it's pretty easy to get, you know, very atmospheric scenes, which is what I'm aiming for. Okay, create another wall light. Point light. Yeah, it's really weird how, as I said before, how some things are streamlined and some things are fucking insane, insanely complicated. I mean, all these things that don't require code are like, wow, okay. Yeah. The only thing that probably gets a bit tricky if you want more interactivity, like if you have to code it, then I think it could be a bit more complicated. Wall maps. Aha, I need a static object first. Static body. Then a sprite, I guess. Right? Right. Objects. Wall lamp. Isn't it the same? I know it's not. Okay. Why is this sprite so big?
My shoes are dirty. And it's like, what am I gonna clean them knowing that they're just gonna get dirty again? I don't.
No, I don't want.
Whatever.
What did I do? Oh, it's good. Can I? Can I trim it somehow? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. With there we go. Let's center it. There we go. We fixed it on the fly. Okay. So now we need what does it say? There's no shape. We need a collision shape. Do we? Yeah, we do. There we go. The thing that I don't understand with this sprite is fucking which direction is it pointing?
It starts with just a hint of paranoia. I'm creeping on the border between
So I guess this
coast and
goes on the wall and it points in that direction.
I'm back and forth somehow between here and
I think the lower part is where the wall comes, right? And then this is the open part.
call it closure. I'm grinding milestones. I don't want
It's kind of weird.
home. All these feelings I've been dealing
Hey Harold, welcome to the stream. Good morning. It is, you know, midday, but it's fine. I don't know where you are. Where are you from, my man? We need a texture. I think we can use the same light texture as the other one. Oh, Greece! Hey! Nice. I'm from the Balkans, so we were not... I mean, I don't live in the Balkans anymore, but it's not far away. Let's use this as the texture. What did we do for the energy? Yeah, around 5. That's fine. And now we need a occluder. Light occluder. There we go. We set a new polygon. Let's put a collision shape here. Sprite. Yeah, but you see there's a halogen light inside, and this seems like a glass, right? So it's pointing upwards. At least that's how I interpret this sprite. It's kind of weird. It's way futuristic for just a fucking light, but it's fine. So I would say it goes like it shines something like. Why can't I draw 8 points? Let's save this first. Wall light. Uh-huh. Here we go. So I would say the occlusion is something like this. You know? This seems fine. Maybe. So if we put this in our housey house. Yeah, sure. Always ask for help, man. Simple light, wall light. Okay. Where are you? Oh my god, this light is huge. This is huge. So let's say it goes something like this. And then we turn on the shadows. Hey, Quazo! Welcome to the stream. What do you mean are resources in Godot free? I... Yes? Or do you mean like sprites and graphics and stuff, or just the tutorials and things? What do you mean? This is a little bit uneven, and I don't like that at all. Sprites. For this tutorial, if you follow, so this tutorial, what I'm doing is from clear code, and you have a link here for the. Where was it? Yeah, I think the here in the Google Drive you get the sprites. But there's a lot of websites and things where you can get sprites. You can go like, you know, free tile sets for 2D game. You have it on itch. There's a bunch of sites. I even don't know myself. Game art 2D, I don't know. Oh, let's see what Reddit says. Yeah, there's a bunch of it on itch too. You can download and use that stuff, you know. Which I found when I was working in Game Maker a long time ago. It kind of helps, you know, when you're messing around with stuff, but it has nice sprites and it looks nice and you're learning, but it doesn't look like, you know, you're just moving a square around. That feels a lot better. You learning Godot too? Okay, this looks pretty okay, but it seems it should be stronger, and we need that filter on. Where was that? So color, it could be a little bluish, like the other one was. So maybe like this. Oh no, that's the shadow color. No. Back. Okay. This color, yes. So a little bit blue. And energy, maybe like 8. And filter, let's do an average filter of 1.5. I think I did that for the last slide too. This slide is so huge, it should be way stronger. Something doesn't seem right about this. Seems like the scale is off. Sprite. Scale is 1. That should be okay. It doesn't seem like it's working as intended compared to the little simple light. Okay, let's put this on 10. Aha, and we need to set the player to cast a shadow. Okay. Yeah, let's leave that for now. So we go on to the player and we add a light occluder, right? And then we use a polygon and then we draw a shape around the player. That's gonna look very weird because it's a flat. Let's see if this works. Oh no, wait, I still have a... Okay, it's gone. See if this works. Oh wow! Oh, this looks so nice. As soon as it's reacting, the world is reacting to you. Oh, this looks great. Now the only question is how would you set different height, shadow height compared to the, you know? I did see there is like a height variable here somewhere. Yeah, we'll play around with that as it comes on in the tutorial. Hey, Quazo, thanks. You have a school project, still can't decide. Can I use make my own game engine in like pure Java? Java. Yeah, I mean, of course it does, man. I don't even know where to begin. I watched a couple of things where people make their own engines, and it's like, okay, this transistor in like the motherboard or you know memory, this byte has to be parked here and there, and that's fucking insane. I don't even know. I my brain melts just thinking about it. But I've listened. Jonathan Blow is a big like game dev inspiration of mine, and he talked about a very big you know, plus or very big fuck, I'm losing words. Notch casually makes his own engine again. Nice. Yeah, Jonathan Blow makes... They're making a new engine for each of their games, basically. They did one for Braid, and they did one for The Witness, and for the new game now as well. So, yeah. But there are, of course, big upsides if you do your own engine, because you know how everything works and ticks, and you can optimize for the thing you need and things like that, but... That's, man, I just learned like, you know, how to make a character move. Don't throw that at me. But yeah. Okay, I think we can go... I think we did everything that the tutorial wanted. Create another wall light. You should have a light as well as some occlusion shapes. Also make the player cast a shadow. We did all that. Let's go.
I think we can start with the second part of the exercise. I want to make the player cast a shadow. This is quite easy to implement and quite fun. So back in the player scene, I want to give the player another node, which is going to be a light occluder 2D. For this one, once again, we will need an occluder polygon, and now we have to draw in a shape. This doesn't have to be too precise, but you do want to spend a few seconds on this at the very least. Because once again, the more work you put in here, the better your game is going to be.
How's the audio mix, guys?
But in my case, this is a tutorial, so we can be a bit more sloppy. Although this was probably a bit very sloppy. But,
yes, it was.
Well, there's not that much to say about it. We just have to draw a whole bunch of points around the player. Nearly done.
And by the way, you know, making your engine for every new game, that's why, you know, Jonathan Blow gets a game out every 7 to 8 years. So, something to think about.
There we go. And the one...
So what's your school project? And what school is it that you have a... You're going like a game dev school? Those don't even exist here. Maybe here in Germany they do. But back home, no way.
One bit that annoys me is that this bit probably needs a bit more work. That's looking more acceptable. With that, our player has a light shape. Although we're getting an error that a polygon must be supplied. And if we click outside of the node, this disappears. Now, if I go back to the level and run all of this again, I can move to the light. Gonna take a few seconds, and there we can see our player is casting a light, which is looking really good.
Yes,
also,
it is.
If we rotate around, this works really, really well. Cool, I'm happy with this. So with that, we can come to the second part of the exercise. I want to...
Nice. Object-oriented programming, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing, right? That's really cool.
create a new scene. The parent or root node is going to be aesthetic body 2D again. Let's call this one the wall light. I suppose we can save this right away on the wall light right next to simple light. And then once again, we will need.
So I'm thinking about like if you want to program or do a lighting for a torch or fire, right? Something that flickers or changes colors or is moving dynamically. Would you have to do that all in code? Because all of the properties that I see here don't even have a ramp. So for instance, for a color, you can even set a ramp like you would for a particle system. Ah, there's also different blend modes. Okay. But yeah, you would have to go into the code, make a script probably for the point light 2D, and then put a random thing on the energy and random on the color. So it kind of flickers around, or you know. But that shouldn't be that difficult to do. I think I could figure this out on my own. And then could you do a LARP between those so it changes more naturally? I should play around with this a little bit more on my own time.
A sprite, which we are getting not from the lights, but from the objects, and all the way at the bottom, we have the wall lamp. This I want to drag into the sprite 2D like so. And now if I zoom out, you might have noticed that I made a mistake when I prepared this graphic, that there's way too much white space around it. This isn't actually going to be much of an issue because this shape doesn't have any kind of collision, although it is a bit annoying to work with. To update this, you have to go to region, then enable the region, and inside of edit region, you can create a
I did it with numbers, but
like this.
Yeah.
And now this is much easier to work with. Next up,
I kind of like, I don't know if he did it on purpose. He actually probably didn't, but if he put little mistakes you have to like go around and fix it on the fly by yourself when you're in the tutorial, that's very nice. Because you're not just blindly following what he's doing. That's I like that a lot.
We are going to need a collision. Let's go with a polygon 2D because there's no regular shape for all of this. And to draw a shape in, once again, I'm going to be quite sloppy with this one. And this is looking reasonably okay. Cool. Also, I want to move the collision shape behind the sprite 2D so we can see what's going on.
I should probably change
with that
too.
We have a light. And let's place this inside of the house right away. So with the house selected, I want to add the wall light. And I guess we can put this somewhere here-ish. Actually, let's put it right next to the other light so we can see how the two lights interact with each other. That might give us some cool effects. I want to rotate it by -90 degrees. And now I want to move both lights right next to each other. That's a good start. Next up, we have to actually create the light for this light. So I want to create...
Wait.
So we can see what's going on. Cool. Because region use a collision. And to draw...
Aha, it's not a collision shape, that's a separate node. Okay. That's why I didn't find the shape that I was looking for. Sorry.
A shape in. Once again, I'm going to be quite sloppy with this one. And this is looking reasonably okay. Cool. Also, I want to move the collision shape behind the sprite 2D so we can see what's going on. With that, we have a light. And let's place this inside of the house right away. So with the house selected, I want to add the wall light. And I guess we can put this somewhere light-ish. Actually, let's put it right next to the other light so we can see how the two lights interact with each other. That might give us some cool effects. I want to rotate it by -90 degrees, and now I want to move both lights right next to each other. That's a good start. Next up, we have to actually create the light for this light. So I want to create a point light
for the light.
2D. First of all, we need a texture. So under lights and textures, we have circle.png. This I want to drag in there. And now we have a light. I guess for this one, we can use a different kind of color. I guess what might look good is a bluish purpley color. Then we can increase the strength of all of this. And maybe the texture scale, since this is a larger light, it probably wants to have a bit more space. Let's try all of that. And let's look at the house individually. That is looking not bad at all. Or at least it's passable for a tutorial. Let's try it in the game. And if I walk over there, we get two different kinds of color, and they are working together quite well. So I'm happy with this. Although I forgot, for this wall light, we don't have a shadow. So this I want to enable. And now let's try this again. There we go. We can also get two shadows. So this is quite a cool effect. Very happy with it. Next up, I want to create a few occlusion shapes. And specifically, I want to mask out this holding thing, because this is the only thing that should cast a shadow, I think at least. So for that, I want to have a light occluder. This one is going to need a new shape. And now all I have to do is draw in a shape. This doesn't actually have to be too precise, but something like this should work quite well. And there we get, already we have the shadow. Now for the shadow for this one, I want to have some filter, so PCF5. That way it looks like the other one. I'm not going to mess with the color. I think this one is looking fine. Now there's one thing you need to be aware of when you are using a light occluder 2D. And that is you can only ever have a single shape. Yeah. If I try to draw in another shape around the second bit, something like this, then the first shape disappears. So you would need two theoretically. Let me undo it. And instead what you would do is copy this entire node. So with Control and D, we are duplicating it. And now simply what I want to do is to mirror it along the x-axis. And a very simple way of doing that is under Transform, I want to change the scale of x to -1 while leaving y at 1. To make that work, I want to click on the chain symbol. That way we can work on each axis individually. And all I want to do is set x to -1. All we have to do then is update the position a tiny bit, and we are done. Probably be a bit more specific. Something like this looks good. And with that, I can save all of this, and let's have a look back at the level. This is definitely working. I guess one more thing that we could do is maybe a bit more energy for this one, since it is quite large. Yeah, I guess this is something that you can play around with, but for my purposes, I am totally happy with this kind of light. But now we have enough.
And now probably like we painted, like there are different layers to paint on the tile maps, and we painted the collision box. You can probably paint a light occlusion box as well. So all walls do not transfer light, right? Let's see. So in the level, we have a tile map. We have a tile set. Oh wait, we have another one in the house, right? Yeah. So if we go to the tile map of the house, those are the other walls. Patterns, wait. Where was that? Layers? There we go. Huh. It doesn't seem to be one by default. Okay, we'll see if that comes up in the tutorial.
Another issue. And the issue is that
Yeah,
all
there we go.
of the walls are illuminated, especially by the bigger light. This doesn't happen for the smaller light because we have an occlusion shape in between the two. But this simply doesn't work. There's way too much light. To work on that, we have to look at the tile map. So inside of the tile map, I still have the physics layers open. If I minimize that, you can see we have more layers that we could work with. For example, there are navigation layers and custom data layers. On top of that, if you open rendering, there we have occlusion layers.
Yeah.
Those cover light, and I want to add another element. If I add one, then we get a light mask. And these masks are fairly similar compared to the physics layers we have seen earlier. If I look at the wall light or the simple light, we always get an item cull mask. Those were kind of like the collision layers. So like we have done for physics, where an object can only see another object if it is on a certain mask. The same works with lights. Lights can only see objects that are on a certain layers. For this game though, I'm not going to change them. Everything is going to be on one layer to keep things simple. So I can minimize the occlusion layers, and now we have another problem. Like with physics, Godot doesn't know for each individual tile where the light begins and ends. And for that, if I maximize the tile set again and look at paint, we can select a property. So far, we worked in physics, but we can also work inside
there
of the
it is.
occlusion layer.
How did I not
If I
see
click
it?
on that and zoom out, now you can already see where this is going, I think. We can draw again shapes. So for this one, I want to have one shape for this wall. And let me just do the 4 different walls for now, the one that are straight. So this one and this one. Then I can do this one and rotate all of this. And now we have the shapes for the wall. If I save all of this, you can already see the difference. And if I go back to the level in particular, now we can see the walls also have occlusion. That being said, to make all of this work properly, if I move the light around, you can see the issue we have with all of this. So this occlusion right now only works for the straight tiles. If I have a corner, this doesn't work at all anymore.
Yeah, of course.
Which means back in the tile map, in the tile set, we have to create occlusion shapes for all of this once again. So in my case, I'm going to speed up all of this, but well, you get more time to practice your shapes. So
okay, let's do the same thing we did before for the collision masks, but no. They didn't help? Well, you know. What you gonna do? I'd ask what the problem is, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be able to help you either. There we go. And we need this one, put it here. The only thing that's really killing me is the size of this small window. I do not like that one bit. There we go.
Damn, that's crazy. Nah, but for real though. Sorry, I cracked myself up. Anyway, no, for real though. So I say that because you were kind of down. I don't know if it was last week or a few days ago or whatever. It might have been like a couple weeks ago. I don't know. But I was thinking about it. You're saying like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm pouring so much in this. It's like getting very little exposure. I'm like, no, don't worry, man. Like, something just kind of clicked for me. I like this. It can be like a patient, or it can be a very long road. But as long as you love it, man, that's what I fucking love to hear. And that brings inspiration to me.
There we
Makes me
go.
think, like, in all honesty, I'm like, fuck, like, do I have what Willie has? But anyway, this is like what you've done so far, dude. And I'm very proud of you. Like, I really am.
Okay,
Not just a damn
I think
story,
that's
but I'm
all.
stoked.
And then we have this little thing here as well.
I enjoy it. Like, I don't have to lie to you and just say, oh, this is fucking bomb, dude. Like, it's great. No, like, I actually, like, I listen to your album. Like, I fucking listen to it because I enjoy it. You know? But, I love you, man. That little blurb song, whatever you recorded at my house, that was fucking dope. I just listened to that. That was sick. Don't you worry, son. Alright, dog.
Okay, I kind of got used to this. And how this works. Can I not copy this? Hey Kartik, welcome to the stream. I'm following a tutorial and learning just how to do it. Because I'm really new at this. And if you look at here, we are 5.5 hours into a 12-hour tutorial. There's a part 2 as well, so everything is about 15 hours or so. And if you look, we went through a lot. So we went through physics, signals, rigid bodies, tile maps, you know, and slowly we are learning how everything is made. It's been super rewarding so far. And the tutorial I highly recommend. It's from this guy called Clear Code. And what's cool is, like we're doing right now, he says, you know, this is how the things work. Now go do something yourself. It's not just, you're not just blindly following the tutorial. It has little things that you need to do yourself as well. And then of course he shows you how to do it afterwards, but he says like pause the video and go do it yourself. And then if you get stuck, you know. Wait, can it? Why does this disappear? Can I not have 2 polygons inside? How did we do this before? Oh no, you can't. Right. Oh, Inkwell! Hi, man. Welcome to the stream. Welcome. Nice to see you here. Yeah, I came across your channel too. As you're working on stuff as well. No, I deleted this. I did not want to do that. Let me just color pick this, rotate it here, and ignore the rest, because I don't know how to put 2 things there. Yes, Kartik. So he supplies. You can download here the, you know, here in the Google Drive. There's all the sprites and everything for the game. Hey, nice of you to drop by. We're doing lights right now, and it's surprisingly easy. If you, I'm not showing my screen at all. So if you look at, let me just that a little bit here. So if you look, we have, you know, a little particle effect going on when you shoot the laser. There's also a grenade that's a rigid body, so it has physics that, you know, collide with each other. There's a little vent with a particle emitter. Yeah, it's a gaming engine. Yeah. And look at this. We have lights and shadows and stuff. That's super cool. And surprisingly easy to implement. It's like 3 nodes. Where's the other light? This house is rotated compared to in the editor, so I have no idea where I put the light. It should be on this wall, right? Oh! Oh wait, I messed up something with the shape. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, the light was in the wall. Let's actually fix that. So in the wall light, in the point light. Is that the point light? Yeah, we should move it a bit more to the middle, so it doesn't clip through the wall when... Yeah, there we go. Okay. So this is our little house. We made it with a tile map. So if you look here, that's what I've been working on. There's a tile map here. Yeah, I mean, it's Inkwell. It's just following the tutorial. So it's not... I did not do any of this myself. But I'm pretty sure if I started from scratch, I would be able to. But what my idea actually is there's a lot of... You know, if you look into normally I'm a CAD designer or a technical drawer. So if you look into CAD, like architecture libraries for AutoCAD, there's already a lot of stuff that you can use for a top-down game, right? So if you look at this here, you know, there's already all kinds of furniture, cars, people as well. Okay, the people are for a side section, but doesn't matter. You know, different pools, different shrubberies, trees, stuff like that. So I was thinking of doing a top-down game where you do some mayhem and fucking, you know, explode shit like in Hotline Miami. But it looks like you're moving on a blueprint of an architectural blueprint, and it will be called Catastrophe. You know? And that's why I was looking into lights, and the next chapter is animations, so I can implement that. Before that, I was doing like a little skydiving type game, just to test some things that we were learning in a totally different context. But yeah, so far it's been super rewarding and super nice. So I want to get past this 15 hours of just like the basis of everything, and then I'm gonna go, you know, let my creativity explode and do my own stuff. So what we did here on this tile map now, before we draw in collision shapes so the player can actually walk through the walls, because that's just a graphic, right? But now we are doing same for the light occlusion. So now if we play the game, you should see that the light is not passing through the walls like it was before, right? Actually, this is not a good... Let me do it like this. So if I go back into the editor, Hey, funny little goober. Funny little goober, welcome to the stream. Yes, the only problem, Inkwell, in that whole workflow is transferring, because I already did some tile maps, and the problem is, you know, you're using vector graphics in AutoCAD, then you're printing it out as a PNG, and then it turns, you know, it turns the metric into pixels, and it all gets fucked up. So like it's really hard to set up a proper tile map that has, you know, really good seams. But I need to play around with that. I should probably use the professional like the programs that I'm using for my work, because I'm a lot more. I use LibreCAD, which is like a free version of, you know, and that does not have a lot of different options when it comes to plotting stuff. So let me see, if I do this and I turn it towards the, yeah, you see, if you turn it towards the wall, it doesn't cast, it doesn't go past the wall. So that's what an occlusion shape does, right? Let's put this back. So those small walls have occlusion now as well. It's so cool that you can see it real time in the editor. Like that a lot. Okay, let's save the house scene, and if I go back here, make this smaller, and if I move our player somewhere in the house. Yeah, this looks super great and immersive and interactive, and it's so easy to implement, it's insane. Oh, so you're still shopping around for engines, it's not like... Oh, what would be so fucking cool is to put a light on the laser. Oh my god, let's do that right now. It's not part of the tutorial, but I think I know how to do it. So, light. That should be the point light? Yeah, let's do a point light. Let's put this down. Why don't you have a texture? So let's do the same texture. There we go. And let's fucking do as blue as possible. Okay. We'll maybe move it to the tip. Here at the core. There we go, and let's say it casts shadows on everything. That should be enough. Aha, let's do it a little bit stronger. So see, there is a height for the light. Use with 2D normal mapping. The units are in pixels. For example, if the height is 100, it will illuminate an object 100 pixels away at a 45-degree angle to the plane. "2D normal mapping." Ah! So I think a normal map is a black and white or like a grayscale texture you put somewhere, and it on the surface, and it simulates like bumps and like elevations and dumps, right? I think so. And then if you put a light higher than that, it's gonna behave differently with a normal map, right? Normal map. Normal maps are a type of bump map. Okay, I had it right. Their special kind of texture allows you to add surface details such as bumps, grooves, and scratches. Yes! I do not want to give you false information, guys, but I am a noob, so that is gonna happen. But I'm gonna try and back check myself whenever possible. My main... Woo! That's maybe a bit too much. Okay, so now the problem is we don't have a collision. But this looks cool. So it goes into the collision box, illuminates just the wall, and then goes outside and illuminates everything else. Okay. Oh, that's so cool! And so easy! So let's do 10. Fuck yeah. So theoretically, if we had a normal map on this soil here... Oh no, you didn't see any of that. My bad. My bad. My bad. Woohoo! And it's cool how it illuminates the player as well. That's fucking great. So yeah, because we don't have the collision on the walls, and we can have collisions on walls because the laser is just area 2D, so we have to put it in code. But so it illuminates the room, goes into the collision occluder, the light occluder in the wall, illuminates that, and then when it exits outside. Yeah, this is cool. So, theoretically, this soil texture that we have, if we made like a grayscale texture of it, we can actually make it be bumpy, and the laser could actually throw shadows on it, I think. So let's see, if we go to the soil texture, is there an option here for... Or would we need another node? Normal? Nope. Map? Yeah, I don't know, but that's the theory, right? That's why sometimes you will see in games, I think Mafia 1 was a really good example of that. Is like when you have a road and then there was, you know, those street cars like you had in San Francisco. I don't know what those are called, like trams or whatever. And you would have the rails where it drives on, right? And that would be flat on the graphic, but your car would actually bump on it. So it was kind of a hidden bump map thing. But yeah, okay, I think we can go... We messed around a bit, but we can go back to the tutorial now.
So this is going to be another exercise for you.
Okay, he's gonna fast forward through what we did.
All right, with that, we have covered all of the shapes. Now, there's one thing I realized while working on this. If I look at this
that was a problem.
shape, let me draw it in again from scratch actually. So the issue for this one is we have two separate areas. And that's looking better. If I want to create a second one, I can start drawing, but then the original shape disappears. Turns out that for occlusion shapes, you cannot do this kind of area. But I guess in our case, this isn't too much of a noticeable issue.
But that's a big problem, because maybe I can show it on my... because I did a tile map. Let me just show this real quick. Because in any case, when you have a door or a window or something, you always have the walls on the ends, right? And that let me see, can I drag, if I drag a PDF in here, is it going to open it? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. So this was my tile map that I did in CAD, right? So I wanted to have this like, this would be like a floor inside the house, different types of floors. There's just like different types of hatching. And then this is like a sand and, you know, grass type thing for the outside. And then for the inside, I have outer walls. And I have doors and I have windows, right? That's how usually like our architectural blueprint starts. And then down, so this is like how a person would look. And this were like inner walls, right? And then the hatching that would combine with the inner walls. The problem is, if you see this, like every time you have a door, you do have like two pieces of walls, and for the light occlusion that's kind of problematic. But what you would do then is probably have two layers and draw one on one layer, one on the other, and then just say that every light works with both layers. That's probably how you would go around it.
But when you design your own graphics for your game, just keep that in mind. But now for the rest of it, I can move the lights around. Let's say I want to duplicate them and place the lights throughout, and you can already see this is working quite well. We're getting pretty good light. So let me set the color back to default, move a light here. I can duplicate it again, move another light there.
Yeah, it does. When you start, when you finally start to work with things that actually, you know, interact with the player, it's like mind-blowing. Finally, yeah, it's really nice.
Fit on the left there. Probably not. Let's get rid of this one. And instead, I want to get the simple light and move that one. They can see. Selecting these lights can be kind of annoying because they always cover a larger area. If this becomes too much of an issue, you want to use this lock symbol. This one locks a node, so you can't select it anymore. So I want to select all of the existing nodes and then drag the simple light, and now I can move it around easily. For this one, for the transform, I want to have -90, so it points to the right, and have something like this. Then I can duplicate it again and move it between those two lights. And the rotation should be -180. And then I can move it right in between. And now the house has basically become a disco. But let's try how all of this looks in the actual game. So back inside all of this, we're getting some lights, we're getting shadows, we're getting multiple shadows. And even when we have some walls, they also get shadows. So with that, we have a pretty good amount of light. I am quite happy with this. There's just one more light to cover, and this one is actually quite simple. So if I zoom out, the other light, let me minimize everything so we can see what's going on. The other light that I haven't covered yet is a directional light. And this one is incredibly simple. If I double click on that, our entire scene has become much brighter. And if I change the energy of this light, you can see that we are simply adding light to everything. You can also update the color. So if you don't want to have a pure white, you can change this to a reddish tone, or really whatever color you want. It's entirely up to you. And that's more or less all that you can do in here. You can also enable shadows, but that's probably not what you want to do.
Why not?
I guess one thing that I found kind of useful is if you want to have a much darker level, then, well, you couldn't really set this to black because then this thing doesn't add anything. So if I have it to black and toggle it on and off, it doesn't do anything. Because the way light is working is that we are always adding the light, or rather we are multiplying the current layer with a certain
but we can
color. And the brighter the color is, the more noticeable
But the blend mode can be subtract, not add.
it becomes. But if the color for the light is black, it doesn't change anything. So even if we change the energy for pure black, the light doesn't do anything. And that is because of the blend mode. Right now it's add, but if we change this to subtract, then we can, okay, the energy doesn't do anything, but if we now change the energy to something brighter, what is basically going to happen is that we are subtracting whatever color we have on this from the level.
Very cool.
So the brighter it becomes, the more of a color we subtract from everything. So this shouldn't be entirely white, but if we have, let's say, a grayish color, something like this, this would allow us to make the entire game much darker. So if I now toggle this light, we get a darker game. That being said, the other lights are still working. So if I run all of this again and walk back to the house, we get a much more atmospheric game. Later on, when we are building the interior level, we are going to use this directional light quite a bit. Although for now, I'm going to get rid of it because for this outer scene, it wouldn't be particularly helpful. But keep it in mind, later on, we are going to reuse it a lot. And okay, with that, we have covered a really important part. So now we have lights. Next up, I want to talk about animations. And animations...
Somebody asked, do you have like a game at the end? Who said this? Kartik, I think you asked, like, do you have a game in the end? And basically, you have a level, because you cover also like animations and enemy, pathfinding, things like that. So basically, you could build a whole game out of this set and the knowledge you get by this tutorial. So I guess
are ultimately quite simple. You basically always play images in a sequence. The issue with that is that there are two ways to store all of these images. You can either have separate images, or you can have what is called a sprite sheet. For this project, we are going to work with both. So let's have a quick look at what we have inside of our graphics folder. If you look on the left, there we have graphics, and in there we have all of the folders. If you look inside of lights, there we have a fan animation. And these are just individual images that we want to play in sequence. So we just have about 48 different images. It goes from 0 to 47. Alternatively, what we also have, if I minimize the lights and look at explosions, there we have just 3 images. And if I look at one of these images in a bit more detail, you can see that we have one images with lots of individual images on top of it. Essentially, what we want to do is to pick individual parts from that. So this is another thing we have to figure out. And this sprite I don't want to have in the scene. But the main thing you have to understand is that we have to pick individual parts of these images. Like anything else in Godot, what we have to use are different nodes. Godot can cover both, but you are using different nodes for each. If you have separate images, you would use an animated sprite 2D. It works kind of like a sprite, so the node we have already seen, except it wants multiple textures instead of a single one.
Okay.
If you have a sprite sheet, you would use the normal sprite 2D, because that one has an animation tab, which allows you to pick specific parts of a larger image. Back in Godot, first of all, I want to close the steam vent, the simple light, and the wall light. We don't need those anymore. Instead, I want to create a new scene. And for this new scene, we have another root node. And this root node is going to be an animated sprite 2D. If I double click on that, we get an animated sprite 2D along with a warning. The warning being that we are going to need sprite frames as a resource.
Of course.
I'm going to cover that in a second. First of all, though, I want to rename this, and let's call it light fan animation. To work with this kind of animated sprite, you want to look on the right under animations. because there we have sprite frames. And right now it's empty, which is what Godot really does not like. To fix that, we have to click on it and then new sprite frames. If you have that, nothing changes. But if you click on it again, now we get another kind of editor. In here, on the left side, we can set a couple of animations. Right now, we only have default, and this is what I want to keep. You could rename it though if you double click on it. But on top of that, you could also add new ones with this icon. So if you want to have multiple animations, this is how you would use that. Although in my case, I want to delete these new animations because we don't need any of that. Instead, I want to look at lights, and in there we have the fan animation. And this contains all of the images. And all of these images I want to drag into these animation frames. And there you can see we have lots of textures. Once you have that, you can click on this play icon, and then we are getting an animation.
Ooh.
Right now, it's looking really choppy because we only have 5 frames per second. If I change this to 24, then we have a much smoother animation. And well, this is kind of all you have to know about the basics of animated sprites. They basically work like sprites, but instead of one texture, you are working with sprite frames where you have multiple textures. That's pretty much it. And with that, I can save all of that. Let's say under scenes, I want to save this. I guess objects also work, although this folder is getting quite crowded, but it works for this one. And now that we have that, I want to look at the level, and now we can add inside of the ground node 2D, the light fan animation. And this we can move around, and there we get the same issue again that we have seen in the last part, that right now I want to grab the light fan animation, but we have lots of stuff on top, which makes all of this a bit annoying to work with. So because of that, I want to lock projectiles and I want to lock the gate. With that, I should be able to drag the fan animation, and there we go. This is feeling better. And let's just say I want to have it somewhere in here. And don't forget to enable it so it plays. And then I can run the game and move towards this area. And
Wait.
have...
Where did you enable it?
And don't forget to enable it so it plays. And then I can run the game and move towards this area. And there we should have, well, we don't have an animation, but at the very least we have an image. The reason why that didn't work is because we have to click on this icon, which says autoplay on load. And now I can run all of this. And if I get to the area, we now have the animation. So this is what we actually wanted. And well, with that, we have pretty much all we need for this kind of node. On top of that, you could also grab this node and transform it. For example, we could change the scale and double it in size. If I save it now, we get a much larger one. Let me move it a bit further to the middle, and there. I think this is looking okay. Now, this light fan animation, you can also target in code quite easily. And we actually haven't written code in a while, and for this one, we still don't need it. But once again, the main thing you want to do in there is you could update the animation. In our case, we don't need it because we only have a single one. If you want to update the animation, you would simply the animation property. Cool, but this is the first kind of animation that you could be working with. It's super easy. I guess while we are here, we could also add another smaller thing. And that is, with the light fan selected, I want to add a point light 2D. For this one, once again, I want to look at the lights. There we have textures, and then drag circle.png. Not what I meant to do. I want to drag circle.png into the texture. And now we can make all of this quite a bit brighter. Let me change the texture scale and the energy. And now if I save this, we get even more light inside of this area. This might be a bit too much, so a lot less energy. Now let's save it. And there we get another kind of effect. Importantly for this one, you do not want to have shadows. With that, we have the first kind of animation along with a bit of light.
Very
Next
nice.
up, I want to add the explosions. And this I want to do inside of the grenades. So basically right now we only have grenades that work like hockey pucks. They just move, but they don't explode.
You like the animation stuff in Godot? Yeah, I'm just gonna see now how it works. I did use a little bit in Game Maker, but that was so long ago. I don't know how long you've been messing around with this, but one of the biggest like pitfalls I had, because I started doing this a couple of times through the last like 6-7 years, is that if I don't use any of this for 2 weeks, it like evaporates from my brain. I don't remember anything. I have to start from zero, like the syntax, the code, what are nodes, what, you know. So that's why I'm streaming regularly and keep doing this, because otherwise it just leaves.
Let's work on that a bit more, which means with Control or Command Shift and O, I want to open the grenade. And here you can see we have a grenade, we have a sprite 2D and a collision shape. So basically nothing is happening. To work on that a bit more, I want to add the animation, and this is in a sprite sheet. Let me, before I add the node, look at this. So instead of explosions, we have, let's say, explosion 2. And zoom out. We have one.
Yeah, but I know the basics of like animation, the keyframes and the timeline and all that, you know. So we'll see how it goes. With sprites, it shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Image that contains a huge amount of smaller images. And basically what we want to do is to pick.
But 3D and rigging and moving every joint and keyframing all of that, now that's work.
Individual parts from that and then play them in sequence. For that, we can use a normal sprite 2D, the node we have already used many times. Because in there, in the inspector, we have animations. This one has a few properties. We have H frames, V frames, and then frame. If I increase the number, you can see quite well what this is doing. If I change this to 2, we are cutting the entire thing in half. And if I increase the number even further, at some point, we are down to 1 column. And let me draw on this, that should be easier to explain. When you look at this image, you notice that we basically have columns like so. And
it's
then
basically like a tile map.
Like so.
Yeah.
In total, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 columns. And I think the same amount of rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 indeed. What H frames and V frames want is the amount of columns and rows that we have. H frames covers the columns and V frames covers the rows. Which means in our case, we have 8 columns and 8 rows. And you can already see, I can zoom in now, and we can't see anything because the very first frame doesn't have any kind of image. And I should show my mouse. You can see it. Right now, we are splitting up the image into 8 columns and 8 rows. And currently, we have the first item selected, which doesn't have anything, so we can't see anything at all right now. But if I increase this number, at some point, we get an image, and the higher the frame number is...
Yeah, Inkwell, thank you very much for dropping by. Hope to see you again. Have a good day, my dude.
The animation. And I can click on this faster, and then we cycle through the animation. That's literally all that's happening in here. So if you cycle around, you have the animation. You can even be a bit more specific, because under there, we have another attribute called frame coordinates. There you can target the column
nice.
And the row more specifically. For example, if I set the frame back to 0, we get X and Y being 0. But if I change this frame to, let's say, 2, then we move X to 2, but we stay on the first row. I hope the system makes sense. If you play around with it, it should be fairly straightforward. Now though, we have another issue, and that is none of this plays automatically in the game. So this kind of behavior we have to program, and that would be kind of an issue. Now we could manually target every single frame inside of code and then make this work. But that would be really annoying to work with. So we need a better solution. And fortunately, Godot has another better solution, which is actually one of the most important nodes you can learn about. That node is the animation player. And basically what it does is it plays an animation. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the reason why this is powerful is because when we talk about animation in this context, we mean literally any kind of change in property. It could be a movement, a rotation, animation frames, light energy, or literally any property of any node. You can also use an animation player to call methods on a certain node, and you get a huge amount of control over how these things change. So let's play around with that.
Okay.
First of all though, I want to clean things up a bit, and for that, I'm going to get rid of explosion 2. So let me delete it, and instead, with grenade selected, I'm going to add a simple sprite 2D. And this sprite 2D is going to get explosion 3. This is the one I actually want to use. So I'm dragging it into the texture. Now we get another kind of sprite frame. And on that, once again, I have 8 columns and 8 rows. Which means now we can animate via the frame what kind of image we actually want. And by default, let me set it to 0. Also, I want to rename the sprite 2D to explosion. That feels significantly cleaner. Cool. With that, I have the grenade selected, and now I want to add an animation player. If you just type in animation, you get animation player and animation tree. For this tutorial, we are only going to use the animation player. However, if you use more complex games, especially 3D ones, you want to use an animation tree to control the animation you have inside of the animation player. Although for now, don't worry too much about that. I simply want to add an animation player, and then we are good to go. At the bottom, we have another kind of editor that doesn't really have any kind of content. To change that, you have to click on animation. This gives you another menu, and in there, you can click on new. This is going to create a new animation. The kind of animation I want to create, I want to call explosion. Once you have that, you get a timeline.
Nice.
Right now, we have a timeline. You can drag a kind of indicator around, and this timeline goes from 0 to 1 second. Although you can make it longer, so on the right, you can set this to 1 second, or 2 seconds, or 10 seconds, whatever you fancy. In my case, I want to set the animation length to 2 seconds. For these kind of values, you just want to choose whatever looks best in the end. There's no universal value. You can also change the units, they're seconds or frames per second. The indicator, right now, we are moving in increments of 0.1 seconds. And quite a few more, but none of this really matters. What instead is incredibly important is this add track. If you click on that, you get a menu of what kind of value you want to animate. In our case, we want to animate a property track. So if I click on that, then Godot is asking me to select a node. And in my case, I want to select the explosion. Or more specifically, the sprite 2D that is called explosion. If I now click on OK, Godot is asking me which kind of property of this node I want to animate. In my case, I want to target the frame of the sprite 2D. And on this, I can click open. And now we have the frame property. And if I look back at the sprite 2D explosion, all the way on the right, we now have keys. This is because of this property that we have set. Or more specifically, because we connected this sprite to an animation player. And now with that, we can create keyframes. So right now in the timeline, I am at second 0. And if I click on the key next to frame, I have added a keyframe for this time, which means at this time, we are going to have this frame. However, if I now go to 1 second, I can right click on it and insert another key, or to be more specific, another keyframe. And if I click on this one on the right in the inspector, we get another value. So for example, in there, I could set this to 1. And now if I go further to the right, I can right click again, insert another keyframe, click on this one, and then increase the value by 1 again. And now if I move along the timeline, and let me zoom in a bit. If I now play all of this, we get a very basic animation. And if I move these keys closer to each other, you can see a bit better what's going on. So if I now play it, we get a really slow animation. It doesn't look particularly good, but that is a rather small issue. All we need are more images, and then we have all we need. Let me get rid of all of these keyframes and move the timeline back to 0. Now, with the explosion sprite selected, I want to get my start frame. For this particular one, I want to start with frame 29. So let me increase this a bit. And I want to start on 29. Actually, 28 might be better. Let's start with this one. So 27, this is where I want to start. If I now click on the key, we have added one keyframe and we have moved the timeline forward by one increment, so 0.1 second. Because of that, still with the explosion selected, I can click on this key multiple times. And every time we get the next frame inside of this animation, and we're moving the timeline forward a tiny bit. So I can do this multiple times, and I want to go up to frame 44.
Wait, couldn't you do that with a curve?
Further. I guess this one looks good. You do want to be careful here, because if you keep on moving forward, at some point you reach the end of the timeline, and then you would get some weird behavior. So in my case, I want to extend all of this, let's say 2.4 seconds. And if I now play all of this, we are getting an animation. So this is working really good. And this is the basics of what you can do with animations. Pretty much all you want to do is always add another track, then you have a property track, and then you select a node. And on that, for example, I could get the grenade. Now you can update one property of this node, and literally any property of this node can be animated. There's no limit to it. Also, what you can do inside of the animation player, we still have autoplay on load, and we have looping the animation. So both of these you could use just fine, like we have seen for the other animation. Let's say I want to autoplay this animation. If I now run the game, I shoot a grenade, there we get an animation. Although you can see this isn't ideal yet. We keep the last frame of the animation. So we still have to work a bit more on this. I want to select the animation player again. And if you click on the node and you don't get the editor, all you have to do is click on the animation at the bottom, and there we are again. I want to add another track, but now I want to call a method. And the method is going to be onGrenade. And now we get another timeline. If I now right-click on this, I can insert a key, and now Godot is asking me what method I want to call. Right now, Grenade doesn't have any custom functions, so we can only call the inbuilt ones. But that is all we need for now. The one I want to call is called Q3. This destroys a node. So this is the method I want to call at the end of this animation. And now, if I run all of this again, I can shoot a grenade, and by the end, it disappears. Because we literally destroy the node. I can actually demonstrate. If I go to remote and look at the projectiles, I can still shoot a laser, and we get a laser inside of the projectiles. And if I shoot a grenade, we get a grenade for a bit, but after a while, the grenade disappears again, along with the animation. So this is exactly what we wanted. And once again, all we need to do for all of this is an animation player. And this could do even more. There's a lot of stuff you can do in here. As a matter of fact, we can do an exercise with this one. I want you guys to add a red light to the grenade. On top of that, add another animation to the animation player and use that to make the red light blink for 2 seconds. The energy property of the light is probably what you want to use for that, but just play around. On top of that, add another function to the root node of the grenade. This function should be called explode. And at the end of the animation for the blinking, I want you guys to call this function. Pause the video and try to implement.
Wait. You're throwing a lot at me, code.
Another animation to the animation player of the light is probably what you want to use for that, but just play around. On top of that, add another function to the root node of the grenade. This function should be called explode. And at the end of the animation for the blinking, I want you guys to call this function. Pause.
Aha, okay. Yeah. I got it. So let's add a light to the grenade. It's gonna have the same texture as a circle, the one that we did before. And let me put my programming playlist on. My coding playlist. There you go. Point light. Should that be in the same animation player or in the other? I mean, it is in the grenade. So let's make this 4.4 seconds. Let's select all this and then move it. Oh, yes. Nice. Okay, then we have this light. Let's make it red. Bright red. Go. Should be a bit brighter, I guess. The energy can be maybe 3. And now we're gonna add a track. It's gonna be a property of the light. Gonna be energy. And it's gonna start with a 3. And then every half a second. Smooth this. There we go, now we have the whole thing. Beep, beep, beep. Half a second. Beep, beep. That seems about right. Energy is now 0. And that. Then we go back to 1. Let's put energy on 3. Key. And probably copy paste keys, right? Oh, I'm copying the light. No. No. Duplicate key. There we go. And then 2. Duplicate key. Why is there a line between them now? Okay, let's try this. 1, 2. Yeah, the last one with the line is not working properly. There we go. Nice. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, what else do we want? Add a red light to the grenade, add another animation in the animation player. Make the light blink for 2 seconds. Also add a function to the grenade called explode. Okay, so here in the code, is that like this? Func? Func? Func explode. Okay. Yep. And then call that function via the animation player. So we need another track, and it's gonna be call method, right? And it's gonna be from the grenade. Aha. Huh, how come? Does the animation play till the end? Oh. What did I messed up now? Grenade that speed. I mean, it's here. Aha. Pass at first, right? This function doesn't do anything. Yeah, maybe that's why. Yeah, there we go. Yes, so the animation doesn't play till the end because we have this cue free here, and that should go at the end. Let's see now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's a much longer animation. So the function called explode, call that function via the animation. So it's probably gonna go here. Void explode. I think we did everything. Oh, fuck. You don't see half of... Probably park myself here now. Can I do that on the same, or does it have to be... Oh, I can. Okay. So we actually don't need this track. Crash. There we go. Okay. I think we got everything. I got this. I got this.
The video and try to implement this one yourself. First of all, I want to create another animation. So with animation, I click on new, and let's call this one blinking. Inside of this animation, we have a timeline, and we want to add a track. Although to animate a property, we first of all need the light for the grenade. And for that, with the grenade selected, I want to add another point light 2D. And let me hide the explosion for now, because this one would be distracting. Basically what I want to do is to have a light over this red circle.
Okay, so he didn't combine it, he did it another one. Okay. Let's do that real quick. We can probably just copy all this. Let's trash it. New. Blinking. Property track, point light. Let's do this real quick. Again, energy. The animation is gonna be 2 seconds. Wait. So 3, 10, 0. and then park at 1. Duplicate, park at 1.5. This one. No, not with the. Stop it. Don't drag a line. There we go. And then this one with this one. Right? But how do those two animations stack now? Autoplay. Huh. So the active one in the animation player plays, right? So we put this one there. We do a 2.4 again, or 2. What was it? 2.7. This explode doesn't go here. It's gonna go into the blinking. And Q freed. We move here at the end, right? And so autoplay. So now if I play, the blinking is not gonna play, but the explosion is gonna play. Yes. Okay. So the one that's active here in the animation tree is the one that's actually getting played. Okay. So we need blinking here, and then we need to add a track for a method. And we're gonna call it probably here at the end, at frame explode. There we go. That should work. Wait. Autoplay. Wait. Okay. I think I got it now.
Also, the collision shape should probably be below the sprite, so we can see a bit better what's going on. Once again, inside of graphics, we have lights and the texture. There we have circle.png. This I want to use for the texture, and I definitely want to scale this down quite a bit. Let's say 0.3, probably too large, 0.2, still quite large. Okay, this one is definitely much too large. 0.01 is too small. 0.1, okay. 0.03 was the ideal number here. On top of that, I want to update the color. So the color for this one should be a reddish tone. And let's go all the way to red. And finally, to make sure the energy works, so we can add some blinking via the energy. This is looking quite good. Which means we can use the animation player to update this energy property. Although, first of all, the animation needs to be 2 seconds long, which means in the timeline, I want to set this to 2 seconds. Now I want to go all the way to the beginning, and at this point, I want to add a track, then a property track. I want to get the point light, and on there, I want to get the energy. If I open this one now, I can either add a keyframe with a right click and insert key, and let's say by default, this should be a 0, so we have no light at all. And let's say if we go to half a second, I could go to point light 2D, and I could add another key via the inspector. Both is totally fine, you get the same result. Although right now, both of these points have a value of 0, so there's no change. Instead, I want to increase the value quite a bit, let's say this one, and to have a bit clearer numbers, let's go with 10. And if I now click on the key, we go from 0 to 10, which means if I play this, we get an animation.
So the
cool. And now we can go to 1 second.
So the line means that there's no value change. Okay.
And set this to 0 once again. Click on the key again. Then we get kind of a blinking animation. then 1.5. This should be 10 again. And then I can go to 2 and set this back to 0. If I now play all of this, we get an animation. Although it's not exactly a perfect animation, we probably want to have some slightly faster blinking. For that, I want to move the nodes a bit closer to each other. And once again, I keep on repeating myself, but the more time you spend on all of this, the better it's going to look. And let me move them in equal increments. And what you can also do, if I go to the right part, you can simply duplicate a key. So if I click on duplicate key, we get the same kind of outcome. Now I want to get this one. And let's say for the last one, I want to increase the time to 2.1 seconds. And now for the final key, I want to duplicate this one. And now we have faster blinking. I guess this one works. And this animation is what we want to play by default on auto load. So now if I run all of this again and shoot the grenade, we get a blinking behavior that stops after 2 seconds. So this is perfect. On top of that, with the animation player selected, I want to call a function at the end of this animation. Now for that, I have to get to my grenade or the script on my grenade, and right now there's literally nothing. So I want to add a function that I called explode. It doesn't need any arguments, and in there for now, I simply want to print explosion. Really important now, make sure you are saving this script. Otherwise, the next step is not going to work. The next step being, I want to add track, then call the method. I want to call a method on the grenade.
Hey, Hero.
Now we get...
First of all, sorry, I didn't see your message. First of all, you have to tell me what kind of games do you like, and then I can recommend you some games for sure, man.
Another timeline, and Godot wants a function. All the way at the end of the animation, I want to insert a key, and now we have from script methods explode. This is the function I want to call. And if you didn't save the script, you wouldn't have this final step. You wouldn't get this explode function.
Yeah,
this is only available once you save the script. But with that, if I run all of this and I shoot a grenade after 2 seconds, we should get explosion. Cool. This is working. Although in this case, I don't want to print explosion. Instead, what I want to do inside of the animation player, I want to play the explosion animation. And that we can do quite easily. All we have to do is, first of all, we have to get the animation player and then the play method. Already doing that, Godot is giving us a couple of choices. Blinking is the current animation, and instead we want to play explosion.
Nice.
And now, if I run all of this, I can shoot a grenade, it blinks, and then it simply disappears. The reason why this doesn't work is because I have hidden the explosion node. So if I make this one visible, then it should be working. So now if I run all of this again, that is feeling much better. I guess we could refine this a tiny bit though, because this animation doesn't look amazing yet.
Wait. Doesn't work. So are you maybe interested in games that are simpler on the graphic side but are really fun to play? That's maybe something that you want to look into if you want to, as a game dev wannabe. You should check Stacklands. Let me show you. Stacklands is an amazing little game. It's basically a game.
Is a village builder where you stack cards to collect food, build structures, and fight creatures. For example, dragging a villager card on top of a berry bush card will spawn berry cards over time, which you can then use to feed your villagers. You can also sell the cards to get coins, which you can then use to buy card packs. You can advance in the game by finding idea cards. Ideas will tell you how to build certain things. So for example, you'll see that the house idea will tell you you need 2 wood and 1 stone to create a new house. And so if you stack those together, the villagers will start building it and you'll have a new house. Your
Such a
villagers
cool
will
concept.
have to eat every month, so always make sure you have enough food.
So it's basically like a city builder game with stacking cards on top of each other. It's a really cool game. What else as a fresh game dev? Yes, and if you look at how it's designed and like the poppy sound effects and everything, it's really satisfying to pull cards in and out and make stuff work that way. It's a really cool game, and it doesn't cost a lot. I think it's very cheap. Let's see. If you're interested in making top-down games like we are making right now on in the tutorial, you should definitely check out Darkwood. Darkwood is probably the reason I am doing this in the first place. 18. I streamed this game. I played it maybe like 6 years ago on stream. When did it launch? 4 years ago on PS4. Yeah, something like that. 4 years ago. I finished it on stream, and there hasn't been a week gone by that I don't think about this game. It's a amazingly atmospheric horror game. It's the best horror game I've ever played, and it's a fucking top-down game. And it doesn't have any jump scares whatsoever. You should definitely play this. I understand horror games are not for everybody. If you don't have the nerves or like the balls to do it, I understand. I didn't have as well. I started playing horror games on stream, and it was kind of funny, you know, to get scared and then laugh with chat. Yeah, Darkwood is amazing. If you haven't played it, it's gonna stay with you. It really crawls under your skin and just stays there, man. The atmosphere is you can fucking cut it with a knife. It's amazing. What else? If you like all those, like, you know, Stardew Valley type things, or Undertale is maybe like Undertale is much more story driven, but there's also a Graveyard Keeper, a little gruesome. Graveyard Keeper is basically, if you played Stardew Valley, but a little bit more morbid, you know, so you don't have a forest or you don't have a farm. You have a graveyard you need to take care of. It has some cool systems. It's a bit grindy at times. It has a couple of DLCs as well that made it so you have to, like, I don't know, restore a church, or you do have a church part of the game where you do sermons and gather faith. That's also like a resource you need to have. But there's been DLCs, I think, that makes you run a tavern. You know, it has a lot of systems. You could get lost a couple of times. I didn't go look through a walkthrough, but it's kind of like, you know, oh, what am I supposed to do now? because there are a lot of different workbenches, a lot of different progressions. But if you get into it, I think there's a whole lot you can do here. You know, you're restoring the church, and then there's also like a story, and like in Stardew Valley, you open up new places on the map. There's also, yeah, like a dungeon area where you go fight. This is probably a lot of game for your buck, you know. But there you go. Those are my 3 recommendations, considering you like Cuphead, Undertale, Celeste, and Minecraft. I didn't play a lot of platformers recently, considering you said Cuphead and Celeste. The last one I played was Ori, but if you have some friends and you want to play something sick, what was that called? Chicken Horse? Ultimate Chicken Horse, yeah. That seemed like I haven't played it a lot because I don't have a lot of friends I play game with, but this is a cool concept for a multiplayer game. So basically each person gets a thing to place on the level. You need to fuck other players over, but you need to be able to finish it. You know? So it's like playing it's like playing a competitive Mario what's the name of the Mario game where you make levels? That. So, you know, you try to collectively make the most fucked up level, but you still have to be able to finish it, right? That's such a cool idea. And so it goes in like rounds, right? So it starts as a blank slate, then you get a couple of normal platforms, and then as the round goes on, you get more fucked up like traps to put in on the map. So yeah, those are my recommendations. Enjoy. Those are 4 very different games, so you can go in any direction. Yeah. Aha, wait. Something didn't work with because probably autoplay is not on the animation. Let me check. So blinking has autoplay, and doesn't have autoplay. But if you change, oh, I have something in the debugger. Errors. Call explode. Aha, I changed the name. So first the name was like this, and then I linked it in the animation. So probably, yeah. It's wrong. So let's just reconnect this. There we go. That should work now. Pew. Nice. Okay.
Inside of explosion. And let me show the editor. There we have the explosion. First of all, I want to hide the actual sprite 2D. So if I hide this, sprite 2D right now is the grenade itself. I want to hide this around this part of the animation because there it's not visible at all. So in our property track, I want to get property track, then I want to get sprite 2D, and the value I want to look for is visible. In there, I want to insert a key at this point, and you can already see right now it's enabled, but this should be disabled at this point. And at the beginning, when we start the animation, I want to have another key, and there it should be enabled. Which means now, if you run all of this, at some point, this sprite 2D will not be visible anymore. And this we can use around this timeline to add another track, a property track. I want to get the explosion, and on that, I want to get modulate. What this allows us to do is set the transparency of this animation. And it was up here. If I now insert a key, we get pure white. And this is totally fine. We can leave this as it is. However, if I go all the way to the end of the animation, I can add another key. And this one is going to be fully transparent. And now we are getting the explosion slowly disappearing. So if I now play all of this, the transition is a bit cleaner. On top of that, what you can also do is change how these two values change from one point to another point. And this you do on the right. There you have continuous, discrete, or capture, or you have nearest, linear, or cubic. This is how the animations change. For this one, for example, if we go with cubic, then we get some slightly different behavior. Although in this particular case, it's not too visible, but you can play around with this a lot and get the exact kind of animation that you want. But with that, I can run all of this again, shoot a grenade, and there we have a bit of an issue. So you can see we still have the light. And that is because the sprite 2D was hidden because of the animation. If I now run all of this again with the sprite 2D visible, now this looks better, and let's try an animation. This is looking pretty good. We probably want to hide the light as well. This could be a problem. Yeah, definitely. The light is going to be an issue. So once again, with the animation player, for the explosion, we have to add another track, which is a property track for the point light 2D. And all I really want to do is to hide the light entirely. So this is not hide, this is visible. At the start of the animation, I want to have the light visible, so insert key, it should be visible. And along with the sprite 2D, I want to hide the key. So on this keyframe, I want to make the light disappear. And now this should look better. And there we have another minor issue, but the light disappears. So basically, every time we are playing the animation, we are hiding the sprite 2D. That is because inside of this animation, whenever we are playing this, at the end of the animation, sprite 2D is invisible. I suppose the most secure way to ensure that this isn't going to be a problem, inside of blinking, all the way at the beginning, I want to add a track, a property track, then sprite 2D, and set visible to being enabled all the way at the beginning. And that way, we are not going to have the issue. I can now shoot it, and we have another issue. Now the light isn't being visible anymore. And this, once again, is because inside of explosion, we're hiding the sprite 2D and the point light 2D. So both of these, if we're playing the animation past this point, they are being hidden. So you can see it in the editor right now. This can be an issue. And once again, inside of blinking, all the way at the beginning, one more track, a property track, point light 2D. I want to set this to visible. And now I want to add another value to point light 2D in the beginning. This should be visible. And finally, let's try all of this. If I now shoot it, we get the light, we get the grenade, we get the explosion, and we get a transparency effect. Cool. With that, we have animations. And yeah, I'm happy with this. So this was the animation player, one of the most powerful nodes in all of Godot. And you can have a lot more animations in there, and you can do a lot of things. Also, when you look at add track, there's a lot more stuff that you could work with. I have only touched the surface of this node. I want to talk a bit more about animations. Specifically, I want to cover another concept called tweens. And tweens are not essential to make a good game in Godot, but they can make your life significantly easier. At this point, we can animate basically any property using an animation player. The thing is, sometimes you just want to have a simple animation, like zooming in with the camera, updating a position, or changing the transparency. All of these things are quite simple. And as a consequence, an animation player for them would be overkill. To remedy that situation, we have tweens. And basically what they are, most importantly, they are not a node, although they used to be in earlier versions of Godot. Instead, they are an object that you create in the script of a node. And then this tween object can interpolate between two values. This might sound confusing, so let's do an example. we want to rotate any kind of node. Doesn't really matter what it is. For that, we are setting a start value, an end value, and a duration. With
This is a really big puzzle of that was missing to what I was thinking. Is like there's a lot of properties that you would want to animate or change with time. And this is tween is the way you do it. Okay.
that information, the tween object can start at a certain point. In this case, we would have a rotation of 0 degrees at 0 seconds. And then over the duration of 1 second, we would go through all of the values and eventually end up at the final value, the one we have specified. All of this would take just a couple of lines of code, no dedicated node, and it's very easy to work with.
Okay.
Once again, here we are back in Godot. And what I want to do is that if the player is entering this house, I want to zoom in on the player, which means inside of the player, we have the camera 2D, and this one has a zoom level. If the player is entering the area 2D of the house, then I want to increase the zoom level to whatever value we want. Let's say if I go to 1, then, okay, you can't really see the outcome, but if I zoom in, this pink reddish area is the camera zoom. So if we change this to a 1, it is much closer to the player. Although this is not the value I want. For now, I want to keep it at 0.6. For that though, first of all, we need to have a bit of a setup. And first of all, I want to close the light fan animation and the grenade. We don't need those anymore. Instead, I want to work inside of the house. This one is now going to need a script. So I'm going to attach a script. For the template, I want to have an empty one, and the folder should be in the same folder where we have the house. All of this looks pretty good. Now we have a script, and next up,
why would that
with
be on the
house
house
node selected, I want to click
because
on
it's
node,
area 2D.
and then look at body entered. I want to trigger this signal once the player has entered. And for now, let me simply print player has entered. Also, while we are here, let me check the house area 2D in the inspector for the collisions. Those look good. The house is on layer 5 and can only see the player. Whenever you check collisions, this is a really important tab. It's very easy to mess up. Now, with that, we should be printing something. And let's test it. That's usually what you want to do very often. So there we already get an issue that we get players entered many, many times. Although we are also getting it when the player is actually entering. To check what's going wrong here, let me print the body that we are getting. And let's try all of this again. And there we can see the simple light is causing a problem along with the wall
player
light.
layer.
For those, we have to update the collision layers, which means I want to open up the wall light and I want to open up I called it the simple light. Both of those have the wrong collision layer. And I really want to emphasize this, you always want to keep in mind. It's very easy to forget. It should not be layer 1. Instead, it should be on layer 3 for objects. And for the mask, it can see the player, it can see the enemies, and it can see the projectiles. With that, we can save it. And then for the simple light, I want to have the same. It should be on layer 3 and can see layers 1, 2, and 4. And with that, I should be able to close both of these, run all of this again. And now there's no print statement when we are running the game. And if I walk into all of this, we are getting the player. And this works multiple times, so this is looking really good. That is a good start. Next up, I want to connect this house to the level, or more specifically, the signal we have just created, this one here. This needs to trigger a function inside of the level, which we can do via a signal. So I want to create a signal. Let's call it player entered. And instead of printing something, I simply want to get the player entered and then emit all of that. Now with that, back inside of the level, I can get inside of ground, we have the house, and now the house has player entered as a signal. This I want to connect to the level script, and now we get on house player entered. Just to make sure that this one is still working, I want to print player has entered house in level. It's really important to always double check your code, and especially when you're recording, all of this gets significantly more difficult. But this is looking really good. So finally, we can start creating a tween. The way you're doing that is, first of all, you want to get the tree. This is a function that returns the node tree, basically the entire scene we currently have. And this one has a couple of methods. The one we want to use is called createTween. Also function, and a function that doesn't need any arguments. So this would create a tween object. This we want to store in a variable right away. Let's call it var tween. And now we have a tween, although this doesn't do anything.
Moment. I kind of got lost. I was not.
We have just created this one here. This needs to trigger a function inside of the level, which we can do via a signal. So I want to create a signal. Let's call it player entered. And instead of printing something, I simply want to get the player entered and then emit all of that. Now with that, back inside of the level, I can get inside of ground. We have inside of the emit all of that. Now with that, back inside of the level, I can get inside of ground. We have the house. And now the house has player entered as a signal. This I want to connect to the level script. And now we get on house player entered. Just to make sure that this one is still working, I want to print player has entered house in level. It's really important to always double check your code, and especially when you're recording, all of this gets significantly more difficult. But this is looking really good. So finally, we can start creating a tween. The way you're doing that is, first of all, you want to get the tree. This is a function that returns the node tree, basically the entire scene we currently have. And this one has a couple of methods. The one we want to use is called createTween. Also function, and a function that doesn't need any arguments. So this would create a tween object. This we want to store in a variable right away. Let's call it var tween. And now we have a tween, although this doesn't do anything. Instead, what you now have to do is get this tween and then run tween underscore property. And let me extend this window so we can see what's going on. This tween property method wants to have at least 4 arguments, but we have received 0 so far, so we have to make some updates. Also, a really useful tip, if you hold Control or Command and space, then you can see what Godot specifically wants for this method.
That's really important. I was looking for that. Control space? Yes. How do I phrase that?
One, it wants an object. If you hold Control or Command and space, then you can see what Godot specifically wants for this.
Shows in code the prompt to fill the required input. Yep. I'm gonna understand that in 2 weeks when I read it again.
Method. And number 1, it wants an object. Most of the time, the object is going to be a node. In our case, the object would be the camera 2D. So inside of the player, we have a camera 2D. Next up, we want to have the property on this node that we want to change. Which means if I minimize this window and go to camera 2D in the inspector, there we have zoom. And if you hover over that, we get zoom. This is the property we want to address. And importantly, this property Godot wants to have as a string. So on string, zoom, the name of this property, and then we're good to go. And once again, let me extend this. We will need 2 more attributes. Godot wants to have the final value and the duration. Now, for zoom, the value Godot wants is going to be a vector 2. With 2 values, let's go with 1 and 1 for x and y values. And finally, we need a duration, and this is in seconds. So if you had a 1 here, we have a 1 second duration. And now Godot is not complaining anymore, and this should be working. So let's try all of this. And I can walk towards the house, and once we are entering the area 2D, we can see our camera is zooming in. So this is working really well.
But it's not
I can still do everything else, so I am quite happy with that. Perfect. I really hope you understand why the system is incredibly powerful. If the player is entering the house, we only want to zoom in, so ultimately a fairly simple operation. We could accomplish all of this using an animation player, but it would be way too much work, which is why you're seeing tweens all over the place. They make your life much easier, although you could get by without them. However, with that being said, if I run all of this again and I go into the house, so just a second, the animation still works, but the issue we have now is that if the player is leaving the house, the camera doesn't return back to the default state.
So we put it in an if statement.
That is going to be your exercise. I want you guys to change the camera zoom back to the start value of 0.6 for both x and y once the player is leaving the house. Pause the video now and try to implement that.
Okay, so there's probably a 20 different ways to do this, but we have this function which already detects which happens only if the player is in the house. So we need to do something on runtime. So what is he sending here as a signal? Just a boolean? True or false, right? No, he sends a body. Change the camera back to the start value when the player is leaving the house. Okay, we should do that for the level probably. We don't have a run time function here yet. Ready? No, not ready. Process. That's what I meant. Process. So, on each frame, we are gonna check if false. But this is gonna have the same problem. This doesn't change with every frame. Layer. No, that was on house, right? Aha! It's the same. It's just on body exited, right? House body exited. Yes. So we connect that to here. We say signal player exited. Yeah, I was overthinking this. We can just do it the same way with it. So dot emit then we connect that to the level. So what do we know yet? This. So player exited house. Wait. Level. House. Player exited house level. And then we do the same to win. But we go back to 06. 06, right? Let's see. So I still like way too much how this laser illuminates everything. So now we're inside and we leave. Woo! There we go.
I want to start working on the house because in there we have to attach a new signal, which is body exited. I want to add that to the house, and now we have a new function. Although this is local to the house scene, so we have to create another signal. Let's call it player exited. Once we have that, all we have to do is get player exited and then emit this signal. With that, we can return to the level scene, select inside.
And also I think this is much I could have done it in runtime to check every frame, but this is much better with the signal because it happens once when it happens. Right? Right.
Side of the ground, the house, and now we have another signal. This we want to trigger and connect it to the level script. Let me get rid of the white space and extend the window. Inside of this function, we now want to create a new tween and use that to update the camera once again. For that, once again, I want to create a new variable with tween. And this one is going to get tree. And then on that, I want to create a tween. On the next line, I want to use
really
this
confusing.
tween object and then run the method tween property. And once again, we're going to need 4 arguments. First of
Just a note for that. So we have this is basically needed every time to create a tween. There we go.
all, we need an object, which in our case is the player camera. So I want to have the player and then the camera 2D. Once again, we want to target the zoom. So as a string, I want to add zoom. Next up, we want to return to the start value, which was vector 2 and 0.6 and 0.6. Finally, for the fourth value, we need a duration. And just to have something else, let's say 2 seconds. Once we have all of that, Godot stops complaining. We can run the game again. And now if I go into the house, this should still work. And that is looking really good. And now if I leave the house, we are going back to the default camera zoom. And, well, we can do this multiple times. This works really well. Cool, I'm happy with this. With that, we have the basics of tweens. Now that being said, you can do quite a few more things with them. Although before I get to them, the debugger is complaining and this I don't like. Basically, we are using body inside of these two signals. And Godot doesn't like that, so we have to add an underscore so the debugger stops complaining. This is a smaller issue, but you don't want to have too many debugger issues. At some point, they are going to become annoying and confusing. If we now run all of this again, the debugger is happy, so everything is good. Now with that covered, we can look at a few more extra functionalities of tweens that can also be...
Okay, this is gonna be a bit bigger, yeah, a couple of minutes, but I should get going right now. I always try to stream like for 3 hours, and it's been 3 hours. Go eat and all that. This is great. We are actually getting into the meat of the matter, and I'm feeling like everything that's Noi, and then I learn I can apply immediately to my other things. So I'm liking this a hell lot. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're doing your own little projects and things. Go learn a language, go play guitar, go, you know, do all the things that you put aside for a while. Godot probably as well. You can join our Discord. Let me put a couple of links. A couple of links on here if you want. We're a small group, everybody's doing their own thing, linking projects, things like that. Thanks everybody for watching and dropping by. The next regular stream is on Monday, so I hope I'll see you there. Thank you very much for joining. See ya. Bye.